Hello there.
Hello there.
I'm Ryan Serrano, game designer and rules admiral for Star Wars Unlimited.
Hey guys, this is Doe here from Ice Cave Radio, and I have the great fortune of sitting down with none other than Ryan Serrano, game designer on Star Wars Unlimited and Rules Admiral, right?
Yeah, that's the title, it seems. Yeah.
Are you ever concerned that being a Rules Admiral might be a little bit dangerous? Because admirals have kind of a high mortality rate in the series. Does this concern you? Do you want a different title?
Until they give me my own capital ship, I'm not terribly concerned.
That's true. Yeah.
Although you could consider the comprehensive rules a bit of my capital ship.
That is kind of a capital ship of rules documents, isn't it? Yeah. Uh-oh. All right. Well, watch your back. First of all, I have heard actually that you are a Russian literature buff.
Yeah.
So what's a good starting point there for anyone who's curious about getting into that genre?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the classics. Like, I'm a big, like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Pushkin, all of that. But I would say if you have really no experience whatsoever and just want to dive in, people undersell how good the short stories are. So I would start with Nikolai Gogol and just read some of his short stories from any collection you can pick up. Great starting point.
So I'm curious then, because that's kind of like that's heady reading. That's some deep stuff.
It can be.
So does any of the philosophy in there have any sort of your effect on approaches to game design then?
Oh, yeah, I'd say that some of it definitely informs. Like I spend a lot of time reading very dense text and trying to work out exactly the correct way to phrase things, and I think that does impact my ability to do that a little bit. Yeah, there's some crossover.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, there actually is some crossover there. So another thing I've learned is that you run your own trivia night.
I do, yeah, here in Minneapolis.
So is there a connection between running a trivia night and being interested in the rules minutiae of a game?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely someone who, when I used to attend trivia nights, I'm a big trivia guy. I would always be that guy who would go up and, technically I want to challenge you on this particular.
Well, technically.
So as writing the questions on my side now, I try to do my best to make sure I get challenged the least number of times. So I'm really going through and citing my sources and all of that. But there's also, there's a lot of elements of game design to designing a good trivia night, right? You want to, you're kind of cultivating an experience that the people are going to participate in, and you want to make sure that you have questions for certain people, and it all kind of forms a nice whole. So there's a lot of both micro and macro ideas that carry over between running a trivia night or designing your own trivia night, and then designing a card game, interestingly.
I mean, knowing card game rules is kind of like a trivia segment in itself.
I was really disappointed that I didn't get to be on that one stream where they asked a bunch of trivia questions to the to the designers, but I'd love to get in on one at some point.
I mean, we can always do another one. We have to do like a Star Wars trivia and spicy wings or something. We'll just rip that show off.
I've been keeping track. I have a whole list of weird Star Wars Unlimited trivia off to the side. I'm never going to use it, but maybe I'll use it on a stream sometime.
All right, can you share one piece of it with us now? I'm just kidding. You brought it up.
So. Oh, I don't want to spoil any of my good questions that I have ready for if we end up using that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We'll keep that in mind.
Study up, though. Study up.
We'll keep that in mind for a later date then. So, everyone kind of has like a past life almost, or a path that got them into their roles. A designer for Star Wars Unlimited. You were actually working on your own LCG. Mm-hmm. So what was it that, because design is a huge world. So what made you want to design an LCG in particular?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've mostly designed board games, and then I was pivoting to LCGs as what started as originally a desire to just kind of expand my boundaries as a designer, and also I was getting into some LCGs at the time, and kind of wanted to explore that and design my own cards, create a whole world, explore the synergies of cards, kind of think about the ideas of one set going into another set. Looks forward, looks back, all that sort of stuff, and that you don't really get in designing a board game. So it was kind of an exercise that I started on it, just to see if I could do it and to explore the differences between that and the normal board game design.
I mean, it sounds like it works. Here you are on the design team now, and you're the newest member of the team, right?
I'm officially the person who arrived here latest. Yes, I was a couple weeks after the rest of the secondary crew. Yeah.
Okay, so you've had to sort of play a little bit of catch up. You've had to sort of like integrate into this sort of design ecosystem that exists within the team and all that. Like, what was the most difficult part of that learning curve for you?
I think Partially, it was starting to think about design without having the full scope of all the decisions that had gone into the first set or two. So I joined right at the end of set two when it was being designed and created. So the idea of coming in and kind of getting my bearings and starting to think about how would I design specific cards or how would I adjust cards that already exist in the game when there's been all these sort of unspoken rules that the three main designers had been working from. And over the course of the process, obviously there were times when we'd have a little presentation on, okay, here's what our thoughts on the color pie are, here's what our thoughts on these various other aspects of the game are, here are kind of the unwritten rules we've been following along the way, and sort of slowly getting to internalize those.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot more time than you'd think.
I'm sure, yeah. So on that note then, how long did it take to get your first like solo design card approved, and what was that whole process, right? Because that's got to be a big moment where it's like you designed a card, they're like, all right, it's in the game. Like, tell me what that process is like.
Yeah, well, it depends on what amount of it you consider to be a solo design. So if you're talking about the first card that I originated, in the sense that it was just a blank line in a spreadsheet, and I decided I want this card to be this card with this theming and this mechanics, and then let's test it and make it work. Those cards still haven't come out because those aren't until set 6, which is the first set that I'm co-leading. So that'll be in set 6. There's some cool stuff in there. I'm very excited about it. But if you're talking about the first card where I had an impact on what the design ended up being, that'd be in set 3. And I remember we were having some meetings towards the end of set 3 where we were finishing up some of the leaders. There's one leader in particular that I'm very proud of my contribution to how that leader ended up. I get excited. It's one of my favorite leaders. That whole process kind of was that I had done a lot of internal testing with the deck that I had built and kind of explored what is this leader doing? What do I think it needs a little bit more of to be able to really, close out a game and sort of build off of what the leader was already doing. And then we reached a point in one of our final overall discussions where we go through the entire set. And thought about, okay, this leader does need something else. What should it be? And I was like, maybe it could be this. And then everyone was like, oh, that works. That'd be a great thing to add to the leader. And then we tested it a little bit, and it worked really well. And so yeah, it was a much more casual process than you might think for that one at least.
It's a pretty chill crew. It feels like.
We all work together very well, it seems, which is nice.
All right, that's awesome. What's your another design-related question? What's your favorite instance of the game mechanics of Star Wars Unlimited reflecting the Star Wars fantasy of that subject?
Oh, sure. I'm kind of a sucker for the R2-D2 and C-3PO synergy in set 1. I know that's been said a lot.
Fair point.
But I really, really enjoy that on their own. They kind of feel, once you've seen them together, it kind of feels like when you have one of them by themselves, just not fully doing everything it could be doing, and that feels so accurate to them in the lore as well, where really when they're together, they're both accomplishing the things they need to accomplish, but when they split up, even in episode 4, when they split apart from each other, they aren't quite able to do everything they need to be doing. So I really, really like how they work together, and I really like the discovery process because I've seen a lot of players, especially when teaching the game to people for the first time, when their eyes light up when they first realize that the two cards work together, and that's such a cool moment. So it'll be hard to trump that for me, but there are some very cool thematic things coming up that will be coming up in the next year or two. So
neat.
Also excited for those, but can't talk about them unfortunately. Very
of course.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we won't bug you for too many hints. So. Onto the rules kind of questions. Because you have to not rules specific questions, but questions about the creation of rules. Or
I'm always prepared in these interviews for people to hit me with specific rules questions, but I'm also happy to talk generally.
All right. So what's the #1 rules thing in Unlimited that you see people get wrong consistently?
Sure. I think that it depends on whether you're a new player or an intermediate player. So on the new player side, one of the common things I see is players thinking that they don't have to pay a cost to play a card. Right. So, energy conversion lab, play a card that costs 6 or less, people think they don't have to pay that cost. And you always do have to pay the cost. That card would be incredibly strong if it also cancels out the cost of playing the card.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I see from new players a lot. And we're thinking about ways that we can try to make that a little bit more intuitive as well going forward. For more intermediate players, I think that wrapping your mind fully around how nested triggers work. When I have multiple triggers and I choose to resolve one first, I have to fully resolve that tree of that trigger and everything that resolution would trigger before I go back to the secondary trigger. That was there in the original first pool I've described it before as a depth-first search, if you think about it that way. But wrapping your head around that, I think, can be something that, for an intermediate player, can take a little bit longer. Once you do, I think that it comes pretty naturally, but it is different to the way a lot of other similar games handle their triggers. So it takes a little bit of time sometimes.
Yeah, well, the way I always describe it when I'm teaching someone new, it's one of those things where it's like, and I had a lot of these questions too when I started playing, where it's like, you see it, you maybe mess it up once and you're like, oh, I get it now. And then you go on from there. And then you realize just like how many extra sort of decision points that design rule enables, which makes it very good. So
yeah, we went back and forth. There were a lot of long conversations long into the night about how exactly to handle all these things and how they would all be working. And so I'm really happy with what we ended up as, how it worked. But it's definitely something that like you take a little bit of time to figure out exactly how it works. But what's nice is that, I mean, as the rules person, one of the things I think about all the time is like, what is the most niche, edge, complicated case you could possibly encounter? And let's make sure we account for that and make sure that the rules can handle that. But in the majority of games, you're not encountering situations that have these really complicated nested trigger interactions as much, which is nice. Like a lot of times, yes, you can understand how an attack works, how there's 3 steps to it, how each step has its own trigger resolution window. But in the majority of attacks you're making in the game, it's very, very easy on the table, even if you don't fully understand that, to figure out how an attack works and to do it correctly.
Makes sense. And as the game evolves too, you'd imagine that one has to revisit the rules and kind of like figure things out again. So that was what my next question was going to be about is how likely do you think you'll be able to go and walk back or alter a rules interaction in the future if you feel differently about it than when you first wrote it, or the game design has changed in a way where it needs attention?
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful question. The idea is that ultimately our goal and my goal on the design team is to create the game that works the best. There's a lot of other pressures on the game and a lot of other teams that are involved that are focused on other things as well, but we're trying to make the game be the best game it can possibly be. And so if there's a new mechanic that gets added that forces us to revisit how a previous rule interaction works, we're always going to try to make the decision that is going to make the gameplay the best. Now, it might not always end up being the decision that trickles out and makes it to the way the game actually works. But from our side, internally, we're always advocating for what rules interactions are going to make the game function the best for the player base. And so sometimes that means that something will happen, a new set will come out. We'll think about, this is the way this has always worked, and it's worked very, very well, but we might need to tweak it or add some sort of rules. And we're willing to do that if need be. At the same time, obviously there's a value in consistency, and there's value in having a rule book that you can read, it's going to work this way. We're not changing it every single set. We're like, now it works this way, now it works that way. So we'll always be very, very careful if we're making a ruling to fully test it internally, a ruling change, fully test it internally, make sure that, okay, this isn't a rule that we're a year from now going to try to revert back to the way it used to go. So yeah, we'll always be very careful about any major rules changes that we make, but we're willing to do so if the need arises. And a lot of that also depends on player feedback as well. What we're getting from our internal testers, what we're seeing out in the wild, that can inform those decisions too.
So from like a design perspective, then obviously like each set you want to put something fresh and kind of new in the game. How do you balance the need for new experiences in the game with not either conflicting with existing rules or overcomplicating the rules that need to be designed around that stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's telling that we think about, we have kind of 3 big meetings over the course of a set's development. I'm not sure if we've talked too much about the pipeline, but we work on design, and then we have a big design summit where we talk about all the design of all the cards in the set. And then we focus on balance, and we have a balance summit where we talk about, how are the cards working with balance? What adjustments do we still need to make? Are we happy with everything? And then we also have what's called Card Council, where we talk about the templating, talk about the rules interactions. And I think it's very telling that that comes towards the end. We're still thinking about it throughout the process, but it's not our priority necessarily to, we're going to like make this design subservient to the rules, or we're going to make the balance of the cards subservient to the rules. Design and balance come first, and one of my jobs as the person maintaining the comprehensive rules is to make sure that the rules can account for all the cool designs that we want to put in the game. At the same time, it's also my job, and the jobs of everyone on the team, to try to flag early cards that might cause a problem, so that early on, if a design is going in a certain direction, we try to catch it and say, okay, this might be a rules nightmare later. Is there a way that we can pivot this and we can test it in a different direction to make sure that it can work within the rules? But ultimately, the rules are subservient to the experience of the game. And so if there's some new thing that someone wants to do where it might be a bit of a headache, but the play pattern is really, really great, or a lot of fun, or we're seeing a lot of people internally like respond really positively to it, we're going to try to make the rules account for that without it being too much of it. It's always a gradation. It's
of course.
There's levers you can pull and figure out exactly how much we can make this work. But one thing that I personally really don't ever want to do is just kind of hand wave and say, yes, the rules say this, but by decree, this is the way this card's going to work. It's very important to me personally that everything is very consistent.
So like your passion for rules is like greater than I've ever seen in like any other game designer or even like card game fan I've seen before. But so I have to know, like, when it came down to like making this document, was it kind of like there was a room full of people and like, okay, who's going to make the rules doc? And you were like, me, or was there more of a discussion about how'd you become the rules document guy?
I do think that there was I vaguely remember at some point there was a meeting where they asked who would be invested in who would want to like work towards the rules, or aside from our normal responsibilities, designing individual sets, who wants to also have the side responsibility of doing rules. And I believe that I was one of the people in that meeting who said, yes, absolutely, I would love to do that. And there are definitely people on the team who did not want to do that at all.
Yeah, that'd be me. I'd be like, no, please keep away.
It is sort of a weird passion that I have since I first joined the team. Well before I was ever going to be involved in the rules making document, I just started myself just making all these documents about here's all the here's a massive list of every trigger that exists in the game. Here is a list of all the card clarifications for individual cards that I think will need to happen at some point in the game.
Wow.
So it is something that I just kind of, my brain naturally does. I find myself really drawn towards trying to make everything consistently work and developing these frameworks that work on the back end to kind of support everything that we want to have happen. And I'm not really sure where it comes from, but I'm glad I can channel it.
I mean, every team needs that person though, so it's good that you're there for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I'm in a job that lets me use that and do that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I genuinely really enjoy it. It gives me a lot of sleepless nights sometimes because whenever, after the comprehensive rules first came out, I was just, desperately crossing my fingers, being like, oh, I hope I didn't miss anything. I hope I didn't miss anything. And there's obviously like, it's like a dissertation or something, where no matter how much time you put into it, you could always technically have put more time into it. But I've been really happy with the small number of things that we're going to need to change going forward. We're only really reworking how one section is structured just to kind of make nested triggers a little bit more easily understandable.
More intuitive,
So for the version 2 of the comprehensive rules, that'll be a little bit more intuitive, I hope.
Okay.
But for the most part, there haven't been that many like outright errors in the document, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, it's like a dissertation, but instead of defending your thesis in front of a panel, you're doing it in front of like millions of people. Good luck, buddy.
Tens of thousands of people, all of whom would really love to find a mistake you made. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's rapid fire question time. Right?
Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. What does your personal suite and Jabba's sail barge contain?
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the katana. Yeah. I think it's just full of like Kowakian monkey lizards, like just a whole bunch of them, and they're just like kind of constantly having a little party in there.
Okay.
And I can go like hang out with them, or I can wander off and do something else, and they like yell at people as they walk down the hallway.
Wow. It's nice for you to provide a place for the monkey lizards, Salacious Crumb and his friends to hang out.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's very kind of you.
Yeah, I mean, they seem like they're here for a good time,
Yeah, they're just having fun.
Yeah.
All right. X-wing or TIE fighter?
Oh, are we talking just the base model or
base model?
Base model. Because if we're including all the different variations, TIE Fighter is just hands down.
Fair.
I think probably TIE Fighter.
Okay.
I'm a TIE Fighter guy. Also because of Star Wars Unlimited, because I've had multiple games where I can play as a Grand Moff Tarkin, right? I'll play a Tarkin deck and I'll play a TIE Fighter in space, and I'll just keep giving it experience tokens, and my opponent will never deal with it, and then I'll win the game.
Yeah, nobody
particularly
wants
in
to
draft.
actually use a card on that, but then they're like, oh no, now it's a 5/4. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely won one draft in sealed games specifically just with Tarkin plus a single TIE Fighter.
So annoying. All right. Well, what's a deck that you've been wanting to build and play, but you just haven't gotten around to yet?
How can I answer this in a way that doesn't reveal?
Set one deck.
Okay.
Set one deck.
Well, I can say pretty consistently, because this is true for the future as well. I always don't get to play as many typal decks as I'd like to. You know, like a Rebel focused deck or any of the other ones, Imperial focused deck. There's the two main ones in set one, but there's a whole bunch in the game, obviously, that are possible. And I never get to play as much of those as I'd like to. And maybe. Thinking about it right now, I'm going to go build some of those decks today.
All right, cool. Yeah, build a Hera deck or something.
Yeah,
all
of course. Yeah, do some Spectres.
Yeah. Which member of the design team can do the most push-ups?
I'm trying to picture everyone's arms now, which is odd. I think my vote's going to go with John Leo, primarily because I feel like in any push-up competition, it's like, sure, there's arm strength is involved, but also smack talk. Like you gotta belittle your opponents who are trying to do more push-ups than you.
Right, okay,
and John is king of a good burn, so I think I gotta go with John on that.
So you went for the psychological angle. I didn't expect that. That's interesting. All right. So you're stuck in a ditch in a Minnesota winter. Which Star Wars film do you watch on your phone while you wait for help?
It's not my favorite of all the Star Wars films, but I'd probably go Empire Strikes Back just for the Hoth, because it would feel so thematic.
Oh yeah.
I'm stuck in the snowstorm. Here's Luke. It's on we're on Hoth. It's a snowy planet. So
you feel like they're empathizing with you.
Yeah, the empathy strikes back. No, that doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, well, we'll work on it.
But yeah, I'd watch
We'll
Empire
workshop
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. Aggro, mid-range, or control?
I'm pretty solidly a mid-range player. A little bit aggro on times. I don't play a lot of control, but my favorite matchup in mid-range is to face off against an aggro deck. I love the idea of someone trying to get through to my base and defeat my base before I can stabilize, and attempting to stabilize against that is one of my favorite play patterns. But I don't like to necessarily do it in the way that control wants to do it, where I want to stop my opponent from playing the game. I'm more interested in I want to establish a board presence that is just above your board presence, where I can kind of outmaneuver you and stabilize and then pull off the win.
Okay.
So yeah, mid-range against aggro is my favorite matchup to play.
All right. What's the best way to eat walleye? Another Minnesota question.
Oh yeah. So I'm not a native, and I don't know if I actually have had walleye.
How long have you lived here?
6 months, maybe.
That's plenty of time to have
6
walleye.
months?
Come on.
Yeah, I should
Get this man
prioritize
some
that.
walleye.
It's a problem. I do enjoy good fish, so I will have to check it out.
All right.
And I will report back.
I'm very disappointed, but we'll move on. Without giving anything away, which future set are you most excited about? Coming out, being released.
Yeah, I mean, the cop-out answer is to say set 6, because it's the first one that I am co-leading with Tyler, and I'm very excited about a lot of the designs. You'll get to see what kind of cards I like to make when that set comes out. So I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited for set 4, because set 4 is doing some things that I think fundamentally change how you have to think about the game.
Oh, okay.
That's the most I can say.
Sure.
Every set does that to an extent.
I don't want to get you in trouble, so.
Yeah, every set does that to an extent. We don't want a set to come out and just nothing has changed and everything's the same.
Yeah.
But I do think that set 4 has added some interesting spin on how you think about Star Wars Unlimited.
All right.
So I'm excited for that to hit the public.
Exciting. Okay.
Which will be next March. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Spicy tidbit. All right. Cool. Well, that's all I got. Thank you very much, Ryan Serrano,
thanks
game
for having
designer
me.
for Star Wars Unlimited. Appreciate you.
Yeah. See ya.